So good evening, everyone. For some of you who I don't know, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Min Jun Kim, and I'm the director and CEO of the New Britain Museum of American Art. And I want to take an opportunity to thank you for joining us tonight as we launch the first of a series of week-long virtual events to commemorate Martin Luther King Jr., to honor his life, his legacy, and his vision. We are, as you all know, in the midst of a devastating pandemic, and we witness violence and political divisions that have fragmented our country. It is therefore really my fervent hope and desire that Martin Luther King Jr. Day be a reminder, as it is every year, that one of Dr. King's most salient messages is love over hate. This is a simple but a very powerful idea, and one that I think is ever more critical today than it has ever been in our history. Helping us to put together tonight's as well as the programs all throughout this week, I want to acknowledge the hard work of our community advisory group and to offer our profound gratitude for their time and their dedication in planning a series of amazing events. And we are also delighted to have participation from the City of New Britain and beyond, and to be able to showcase different interpretations and expressions of love for this celebration. We have an incredible program tonight and a conversation, and to get it really officially started, I wanted to introduce my colleague who has been instrumental in pulling all of this together. Stephanie Stracali is the New Britain Museum of American Art's coordinator of youth studio and family programs. Stephanie, it's all yours.
Thank you for the wonderful welcome and opening, Min. As Min said, my name is Stephanie Stracali. I am the Youth and Family Coordinator at the New Britain Museum of American Art. Tonight's celebration, along with the 3 other virtual events that we have planned for this week, were made possible with support from the New Britain Commission on the Arts and the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development Office of the Arts. We're pleased to present this week's MLK celebration in collaboration with the Community Advisory Group, the newly formed Community Advisory Group. Formed in October of 2020, the group is made up of 20 and growing community members from various sectors of Greater New Britain, and who meet monthly to plan community-driven events with the aim to showcase the diversity of arts and life in New Britain. And I think I speak for all of us, though I'm sure many of you will share your thoughts with us tonight, how excited we are for the first event, celebrating Dr. King, and how eager we are to present more events in future months focused around important themes and celebrations, which we will be doing through June of this year. I'd like to recognize Maura O'Shea, who's with us tonight, Director of Education at the New Britain Museum of American Art. She's really played an integral role in the establishment of the Community Advisory Group, as she has worked with some of its members and organizations for over a decade during her time at the museum. So I wanted to especially acknowledge her. And now I'd like to recognize some of the members of the Community Advisory Group who are with us tonight. So I'm going to go through everyone. Let me see who's here. We have Adrian Elliott, who is from the Friendship Service Center, and she's curator at Gallery 66 here in New Britain. We have Trey Brown, who works at the museum, but he also works at the New Britain Visitor Center. He's a poet. He's heavily involved in the city as well. Let's see, Sarah Bylargian, I hope I pronounced your name right. She also works at the museum shop here. Susie Jensen from the Judy Jorn Performance Project. And I hope I'm not missing anyone. Let me take an extra look. And finally, Lance Kamau James, African drummer, music composer. He's founder and president of Lance James Productions. So that brings me to my next topic. Tonight's program is really all about showcasing these interviews that Lance conducted with community leaders, focusing on the words of Dr. King, especially his hallmark messages of love, which is our theme for this week, as you know. And I want to, after all the interviews play tonight, I really want to encourage everyone to unmic themselves or type things in the chat, just sharing your thoughts, your ideas, any words of inspiration, or really anything that comes to you. We really wanted this evening to be an open meeting style event to have important conversations. So with that said, I'd like to give Lance the floor just so he can share with us the interview project that he came up with and that we're presenting tonight.
There you go. Now you can hear me. Thank you, Stephanie, and hi, Maura and Ms. Kim. It's been such a pleasure that I was involved with this particular project, and it all came about by I guess getting the call, getting the nod, and then speaking with Maura and Stephanie first, thinking about what's good, what can we do, what's different. Well, then the word love came up, and I think it could have been Maura or Stephanie. I'm not sure. That's great. That's what we're going to use. That's our theme. And then I did say, well, you know what? He has great quotes. So let's give everybody the idea of taking a quote and embellishing upon the quote. And both of them, that's also a good idea. Wow, we're moving along. And that's how you really get committees going with great ideas and people agreeing to enact upon those ideas. So that's what I did. I do know a little about putting videos together, and of course, being a musician, I know a little about presentations and making things come to fruition. So I was charged with that duty, and let me tell you, I was looking forward to this night so much. It's like going to a concert. I still have butterflies in my stomach, like I'm going to a concert, and now I'm here, and the butterflies are still there because I'm working with great people, and I mean that earnestly. There's one quote I do want to end with before we bring the Honorable Mayor Stewart, Erin Stewart, on. And this quote is this: it's by Dr. Martin Luther King. "We must live together as brothers or perish together as fools." And I just thought that was perfect for what we're going through today. And hopefully we'll go through tomorrow peacefully, a peaceful inauguration, and we'll come on the other end peaceful and loving each other more than we love each other now. You know that famous song, "I love you more today than yesterday." Okay, so without further ado, let's turn it over to our Honorable Mayor, Erin Stewart.
Hi, everybody at the beautiful New Britain Museum of American Art. This is Mayor Erin Stewart from the great city of New Britain, here celebrating the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with all of you this morning. I was asked to give one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King and what that means to me. And one of my favorite quotes from him is, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" And that quote resonates with me, particularly as a public servant. You know, I always ask myself, how can I lead and do what is right for my community, but also how can I inspire others to do the same? A community or a city like New Britain is extremely rich in culture and diversity, and it's one of the great things that makes us who we are, but also allows us to accept the differences of others and treat them as very unique traits. And what does that do? That creates a more enriched and a more inclusive society for all of us. You know, Dr. King, through powerful speeches and measured avoid civil disobedience. He taught the world to love one another and to put aside our differences. He reminded us all of the things that we have in common as human beings. Our ability to be selfless can certainly go a long way in developing change in our society and in the lives of individuals that we come across every single day. And it's important to remember that the fabric of our community is woven with many different colors. So I want to thank you to the New Britain Museum of American Art for having me to celebrate an incredible legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. I look forward to hopefully seeing you all in person next year in 2021. So here's to a happy 92nd birthday, Dr. King.
I think Mayor Stewart really kind of captured our goal for these big community events that we plan to hold with the community advisory group, in that it's really about celebrating the diversity of the city in all areas, not only the visual arts. You know, I think as an art museum, we can really still appreciate and highlight the many different forms that art, types of art can be made in. And so I really found that part to be great about her interview. Any other thoughts before we move on to our?
Well, we had also have our children involved through Leona Clerkland getting together artwork and I believe not just artwork, but also some literature that children came up with behind some of Dr. Martin Luther King's quotes. And she responded, and the children responded so vehemently. There's a lot of them. And tell us where their things are going to be posted again.
Yeah, so in tomorrow's event, we have a kids hour with many different things going on in that 1 hour, but part of it, we will be presenting New Britain students' artwork that they created inspired by Dr. King's words. So we have a lot of poems that we'll be displaying, as well as artworks. And those are actually already posted on the New Britain Museum's Facebook page in a photo album. So you can take a look at those, but we'll also be displaying them in tomorrow's event. They're wonderful, they're great.
Beautiful.
Is it safe for me to say a quick word? Hi, everybody. I'm Trey Brown. I work at the New Britain Museum of American Art and New Britain Downtown District at Visitor Center, Gallery 66, right here in New Britain, Connecticut. Sorry for what I'm wearing. Usually you'll see me in a suit, but today I'm actually wearing one of my friends' clothing line called Reconnect by Scott Dulaire, which emphasizes love. I am so proud to be a part of such a unique advisory committee for the first time. I want to give special thanks to Min, to Stephanie, to Mara for entrusting me to be a part of such a unique group. I am so excited for these events. I am really excited for what we're going to do on Friday, which will be to conclude everything and put everything into a perspective to really capture what Dr. King meant. You know, I believe Dr. King was more than just the I Have a Dream speech or the letters from the Birmingham jail. Dr. King really emphasized our theme, which is the power of love. Dr. King moved with so much love and wanted unity. It didn't matter what color you were, what religious background you were, it's all about love. And during these dark and crucial times, even in this pandemic, we can still learn to love, because love is the only thing that can drive out hate. As Dr. King once said, he said, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. So I'm excited. I am truly just amazed by the reception of everybody signing up and participating in these events, because it truly shows that when we come together and we are united, it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's about the work that we do as brothers and sisters. And if we continue to unite and we continue to move in the ways that Dr. King and other famous leaders have taught us, we'll be able to really see a better tomorrow. So thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of this group, and I cannot wait for the rest of the events that's taking place.
Thank you for those words, Trey. I'm glad you're just as excited as I am. So if anyone else doesn't have anything they'd like to say right now, I'd like to present the next interview. So Lance also sat down with Min over Zoom, of course, but they had a great discussion. So I'm happy to share it with you all.
Listen, we know what we're doing is that, we're doing Martin Luther King birthday celebration. As far as I'm concerned, all of Martin Luther King's quotes deal with love and thought. And this particular quote is probably more like a proverb because it deals with, a lot of deep thought. And would you like for me to read it, or would you like to read it? The quote?
No, please. I'd love for you to read it.
So, okay. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of convenience and comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And that's from his 1963 book called Strength of Love. Would you like to speak on that quote for a minute or two?
Sure. Well, it's such a strong and such a powerful quote in many ways. And I think the way that I certainly interpret it is that, how a person, or even for that matter, an organization or a community, reacts when faced with great adversity is really what defines true character. In that it's easy to take a stand when things are going well and everyone is on your side. But it's when the stakes are high and the opposing forces are strong that one is really tested as to whether they want to remain standing by what they believe in. And, you see this particularly in times of crisis. And this year, 2020, has not only been a time of crisis, but it's actually been a convergence of multiple crises.
Yes.
As we know, we've seen the most devastating global pandemic that we've seen in almost a century. We've seen an economic crisis, and we've also seen a collective reckoning and urgent calls to address systemic issues of racial and even gender inequalities. And in many ways, these crises really challenge all of us at this particular moment. And this particular moment becomes, therefore, really a defining moment for many of us. And so for the New Britain Museum of American Art, if anything, it's given us an opportunity to really reassess and reaffirm our commitment to not only serve our community, but to do so by standing true in our commitment to reflect it in all of its richness and in all of its diversity. As we are an American art museum, really continuing to hold the mirror up to ourselves and to this country to better help us understand who we are. And so, if anything, it strengthens our resolve at moments like now to not always take the easy path, but to continue to forge ahead with things that we believe in and the values that we hold dear as part of our mission.
I think what sticks with me is to not take the easy path. And we've all had a very difficult year, but you know, as the Martin Luther King Day comes this year, I think we all really have to remember that Dr. King was revolutionary and he did not take any easy path whatsoever. And that reminds me of whenever I talk with kids about, like in our Some Days Now exhibit, we have a Curator Kent poster of Dr. King, and there's two images of him, and there's one on the top and it has a picture of Dr. King in the back of a police car. And then there's one of him on the bottom of the poster hugging Curator, his wife, and after he won the Nobel Peace Prize. And as we were creating the take and make activities for this week that we're handing out at the museum, we include an activity or discussions about that piece for kids and families. And something that I always bring up, and I've talked about that piece to some girls at the YWCA, and I just always, you know, have them compare the two images to really realize how, while we still celebrate Dr. King and, you know, we post pictures of him at his best, we need to remember that it wasn't an easy fight, and he was, you know, arrested many times. He was, you know, thrown and you know, beaten by police officers as he was hosting protests. So that's just an important message that I constantly try to remind myself, you know, not taking the easy path.
You know, something today, you know, we're so many miles away from Washington, D.C., so some of us get comfortable with saying, well, that's there, it won't happen here. But, you know, it reminds me of a quote. It reminds me of a quote of one of Dr. Martin Luther King's quotes. He said that, and I quote, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." And that makes me think about the mayor of Washington, D.C. saying, you see something, say something. You know, we can't, I think we can no longer stand by, sit by, and not say something that really matters. We have to say things now. We have to, you know, we've heard lies for the past 4 years, and look what lies has come to now.
Lance might have frozen. I don't know if he froze for anyone else, but
Yeah, it goes on my screen. There he goes.
And Lance, you froze a little bit, so we might have missed the end part, the end tail of your of what you said.
Yes.
I just want to
about
interject
kids.
here.
Kids.
Oh, go ahead.
No, about our children. Just telling them now, just starting to, you know, a lot of times we want to shield them and protect them. We got to tell them what's going on. And maybe you want to be protective for, you know, 3-year-old, 4-year-olds, a little, you know, 5-year-olds maybe, but 6, 7, 8. It was time for us to tell them, you know, in this country, what's happening is a result of lies that have been told over the years, and we're getting away from that. We need to get away from that. Speak truth.
Yeah, what I love most about Dr. King, I think Stephanie kind of touched on it. Dr. King was arrested about 29 times. And he had his house bombed. He was stabbed by a woman by the name of Loza Curry at a book signing. He went through a lot. But one thing that I really love about Dr. King is the fact that when he spoke with so much power, so much conviction. Like, you couldn't help but to listen to him and gain just so much knowledge from him. One thing that I definitely loved about Dr. King is that he gave everybody the opportunity to speak first when he gave his I Have a Dream speech, and he was the last speaker for such an event like that. And he really showed that he really just loved the people. He was fighting for everybody. I think a lot of times, um, what I really look at this world today, you know, there's a lot of leaders who have agendas, but the main focus has to be, what are you going to do to help others? And that's what Dr. King really stressed. He had his own agenda, but he was like, what about the needs of the people? And that's why he left just such a strong legacy. And you saw that in his 4 children. 3 of them still currently live. I know Yolanda King passed away, but the reality is Dr. King left this behind for us to say, hey, let's do for the people. Let's come together. Let's unite. And it was during such a crucial time in history where there was no such thing as integration until the Integration Act of 1964. You had Jim Crow laws, separation of people, different restaurants, schools, hotels, barbershops, everything. And look at how far we came. And I like how Lance brought up that quote, because that's the quote that I live by. Our lives end the moment we stop speaking about the things that matter. We saw injustices that took place, for example, with names such as Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. The same marching that they did for civil rights is what we see now when the Black Lives Matter movement came. And the fact that we come together and we unite, we are speaking about the things that matter, unashamed, unapologetic. We're uniting. And that's the main premise of what Dr. King wanted. He wanted unity, love, and service. He said everybody has the power for greatness, not for fame, but for greatness, because greatness is determined by service. And life's question ultimately asks, who are you going to serve? So that's what I loved really about Dr. King.
Thank you.
So up next, we have an interview with Dr. Doreen Crawford, and I know Lance goes way back with Dr. Crawford, so I will let you introduce her interview.
Well, let's limit the way back. I mean, that's you telling my age, but she's correct. Through the interview, I think Stephanie found out that my last assignment, because I worked for Harvard Schools for 12 years as a behavior tech, and my last assignment was with Martin Luther King School, and Dr. Crawford became the principal. Therefore, she became my boss. And one of my first questions to her was, we're still talking, even though we're doing it through Zoom. So that must mean I was a pretty good employee for you. I put her on the spot. She said yes. Anyway, so she is the principal of Martin Luther King School in Hartford, which this is, I don't think this is part of the interview. That's why I'm going to talk about it, because I hate to give up the what's on the interview. So I think this part wasn't on, but the school was rebuilt, was made over. It was formerly Weaver High School, right across the street from a famous park, which is Keeney Park in Hartford. And the school renovation cost $111 million. Okay, which was the most money spent on any renovation in any Hartford school. And she's the principal. There are 2 schools in that school, though. There's Martin Luther King School, and then there's Breakthrough Academy. But it's large enough to host maybe even 4 schools. So anyway, just wanted to set you up a little bit to enjoy. She's outspoken in the community, and she admits it. And that's why I loved her, because she was a strong principal, and we got things done. Turn it over to you, Stephanie. Dr. Martin Luther King, I decided to love. Hate is too much of a burden to bear.
we have to make sure, especially in this time, because we are so into ourselves and into our families, into our smaller gatherings, and not being out there where our world is consumed by others, is to make sure that love does come true. And I think that's what Dr. King was saying. That's what his message was always about. The love. Let us put love over hate. And it's easy for us to hate each other right now just because of all of the rhetorics and all the things that are surrounding us. But we have to make sure that we are putting love before. We are all one people, and we have more in common. More in common. We have more things that are the same than things that are not the same. We are all here together. Let's occupy this space together, enjoy it, love and respect each other, and let's all get along.
I just want to take a moment to make sure, are people hearing the videos okay? Okay, good.
I can't hear it all.
Adrian's having difficulty. Adrian, are you on your phone?
Yes.
I think, yeah, Lance is having complications as well with audio, so we'll make sure to fix those for upcoming events.
Oh, okay.
Adrian,
No worries.
We'll also be putting the interviews on the museum's YouTube, so they can be fully accessible there.
I appreciate you, Stephanie. Thank you.
Any follow-up thoughts from what Dr. Crawford had to say? I'm sure, you know, that with their school name being named after Dr. King, as she had mentioned, there's that's part of their mission. The values and principles of Dr. King kind of are instilled with them daily, which is pretty powerful. And
Well, I just want to add that the name also includes the school name also includes social justice. I'm having, my lips are like still excited. Social justice. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King stood for. Social justice, equality for every person, every man, mankind. We weren't, you know, as Blacks, you know, we don't have to go over this, but I think it's time we do have conversations about what happened, because it's, you know, what was in the dark will come up in the light. My mother used to always say this: what goes on in the dark, and therefore, was I a goody two shoes? No, I had my, you know, I wanted to have fun as a kid, but anything I tried to hold back from her, she found out. So I just stopped trying to, you know, pretend I was going to get away with something. But the main thing I'm talking about is talking now the way we're doing now. You know, I always say that, like, we're finding out that maybe some people who are in the armed forces, National Guard, may be also extremists. So somebody knows that they're extremists. Maybe in your town, the police force, you may know somebody who's white extremist or supremacist. I'm sorry, and or black and very, very violent. We got to speak up and address those things, because too long have we been living in a world where we keep things to ourselves, you know, and sometimes because of fear we do that. So that, I think we're at a time now where we must challenge ourselves to be brave, you know. And I know Trey, you could take it from here. I know you can speak on this.
I think Trey he had to go to another event, but he'll be back.
Okay.
But to some of the points that Dr. Crawford made, and again, I saw more parts of her interview, so they might not have specifically been mentioned tonight, but I know that she stresses the importance of teaching her students their histories and you know, comprehensive history of America. And you know, it brings me back to earlier this year when Governor Lamont announced that, you know, Connecticut would be the first state required to teach African American and Latino studies in high schools, which, you know, is a great step forward and long overdue. But hopefully it's a step that will, you know, change the narrative that's been taught for so many years in schools, American schools. So that's just.
Well, what about civics? Remember civics? I had civics in high school. You're learning about your government and local government particularly. That's I'm, you know, being in the school system for, you know, several years. Civics is not being taught. Why, you know? And so as parents, you know, those of us still have children in the elementary schools and school system period, should address that. Why are we teaching civics? Because that's the first, you know, and if it's taught well, that's the first step towards learning about your government, your local government, how it's run, how you can become a prominent, how you can become a better citizen, and, you know, how you vote. There's just so many things you learn in civics. So I think that's the thing we need to do. You know, I know there's some teachers, and I think there's some teachers on our advisory board. I know we had a principal.
Yeah.
So I know, yes. So that would be my first, would say, mission is for New Britain to say, you know, maybe New Britain School has it. I'm speaking of Hartford now. I know New Britain School is usually on top of things, so maybe they do teach civics.
I agree. Civics, you know, learning the importance of our civic duty to vote. That definitely isn't something that I think every student comes out of school knowing. Also, too, I'll add the importance of, you know, where's the education on financial literacy. You know, that's not really something that gets taught in school either.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're teaching that here in New Britain, but I know that there are definitely some programs. I know Maura and I just were introduced to some staff members at TRIO programs, which is a program out of CCSU, and they, you know, work with high school kids to prepare them for jobs, you know, writing resumes, things like that, preparedness. And financial literacy was something that they had stressed that they wanted their kids to, you know, have.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'd like to speak to this a little bit, and as you guys are talking, I'm reminded that, you know, we all have a personal responsibility in this as well, and I think today's situation is proven that more so than ever, that you know, history and legacies and things has to start at home a lot of times. And you know, I feel like it should. And I was just sitting with a kid from a friend of mine's kid from Lincoln Elementary, and I simply asked him, who is Dr. Martin Luther King? He, without any, you know, prompt for me, told me exactly who he was. So it's there, but I think what Lance is saying, and I totally agree, it's the uncovering of it, the proud of it. You know, we talk, you know, and our kids listen, but it's like, where do we give them another avenue, another platform to further have these discussions? So I totally agree with you, Lance, and at the same time, I myself, I feel a responsibility in the kids that I work with, inner city kids, and anybody, just ask them. And if they don't know, you're not sure, let's read and learn together. So I think that's another way to kind of pursue or push, encourage, you know, that our history as Black people aren't, you know, doesn't fall off at any turns. And that's just what I wanted to say about it, because it's interesting that, of course it should be in the history, we should be teaching it and all that. But before kids get to school, they're at home, and I believe that if we take some pride in that piece, then those questions would be more freely asked in the classroom.
You're definitely right, Adrian. The home, I think we forget how often kids are home. And I feel like maybe there's always more emphasis on schools, and because we feel like we have control over that, right? I mean, we vote for things. I mean, it's something we feel control over, versus the home. Everyone, is their own parent. So, but that's definitely a good point. And thank you for sharing.
Stephanie, I'd love to jump in and just from a museum perspective, I would love to hear maybe from some of you ways in which you think the space of the museum can provide a better platform for our students. I mean, we traditionally, during non-COVID time, students from MLK school come every year to visit. And as a staff, we're really looking at the ways in which we interpret the collection, the amazing collection that we have. And Min Jung Kim is really leading us to really deepen our collection of Black artists, of women artists, of a much more diverse perspective on American art, which is high time. But from all of you, and even if you don't have an answer right this moment, in what ways can we in our museum, expand and promote, make sure that we are telling as full a story as possible and in an inclusive way? It's something that our staff is really focused on and committed to making positive change. And we love your feedback tonight, ongoing, and just grateful that we can share some space.
Thanks, Maura.
Thank you. Thank you.
The final interview that we're presenting tonight is with Adrian Elliott, and she is the curator of Gallery 66 here in New Britain. She's a communications associate at the Friendship Center, and she's, if there's an event going on in New Britain, she's most likely the one behind it. She is an amazing community organizer. She's host of the regular open mics presented by New Britain's Downtown. She's also the host of our upcoming Love Loud open mic happening this Thursday in the evening. So we're excited about that, and let's hear what she has to say to Lance.
Some of what we talked about to get people engaged into the program of what we're doing is, one, we ask people to select a quote.
Right.
A Martin Luther King quote.
Right.
Favorite quote, because he has thousands of them, and all of them are my favorite. So do you particularly have a quote that you like?
Well, I have a quote that you like for me. And that's okay because I requested it. It's fine.
Okay.
But I don't have it before me.
That's fine. I believe it was...
I'm sure.
Yeah.
This is what I was hoping. Come right ahead. Recite it for me.
I believe it was about... our concept is about love. And so I will leave it right there because it speaks about love and love thyself, love thy neighbor. And so that's something we need now.
Right, exactly.
So how would you channel that?
When I think about, art and then the theme there and love and channeling, I have to say that I'm inspired by the people that love me. I'm inspired and my engagement is based on the people that's supported and continue to support and don't have to show up to support. I take Jerry Modi, I'm my favorite guy. you know, sometimes that unspoken support and that love that we're talking about, it's one of those things that if you know it's there, you can keep chucking along. You can keep going.
That's right.
And I have a host of people
that
I know genuinely love me, love the I want to say the way I go about getting things, because I'm a go-getter. I'll get it done. I'll get it done.
Yeah.
I will ask for help. I've learned to do that along the way. But I really have sat still long enough, 53 years now, sat still long enough that I'm able to embrace
love.
You know, yeah. And it's really there.
Yes.
It's right there. And it doesn't have to be anything that's spoken upon. You know,
you can see it.
You can see it. You can feel it. You just know.
Well said, Adrian. Kind of taking us back to the theme of love, and really, you know, as we've gone through this program and each interview, it's just interesting to see kind of where the conversation has gone around the topic of love. And so kind of we're ending it off now here with that unspoken love, unspoken support, which we've all probably been looking for in these tough testing times. But Adrian, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, or did anyone have anything they wanted to speak on in regards to that?
Well, remembering that I am without volume, but I do remember the interview.
I'm sorry.
So I appreciate, Stephanie, that you like the direction from which the interview was going. I just couldn't hear from which it was going. But I do remember sitting with Nance and the comfortability of sitting with him and talking about, you know, love, and then some of the other things that I most love, which is, you know, supporting the arts and the community and things like that. So I feel the connection. It's just, you know, I always say my journey is about connecting dots. And I just, you know, I strongly feel like this is an opportunity to, you know, put some more dots together. And I appreciate it. Any questions for me?
Yes.
Perhaps?
Well, I just wanted to bring up a comment. I work at the museum, their finance director. So before that, I was at the YWCA in New Britain. So this topic is so important. But you know, kind of tying everything that people have been saying is, you know, talking about like Lance was saying about the lies that have been told to people. And I've been doing a lot of reading because I have a lot of people who I consider really good people, really close friends that have seemed to gone down this rabbit hole because of all the lies and the just the tenor of everything right now. And you know, they were saying it's almost like people are being indoctrinated. And I don't know if anybody saw the ex-governor from California talking about, you know, he was born in Germany after the war, and all of these people that were Nazis and supported this all of a sudden realized, it was like this aha moment, realized that they were on the wrong side, and it affected them for the rest of their lives. And I think that's where the love concept has to come in, because, you know, rather than writing people off, it's not going to be easy to get people to come back from the brink that we're on right now. But I think, like Adrian said, you know, just we need to be there and love people for who they are, because they're human, and hope to be able to, with that love, show them the path. And when it's all over and they realize, wait a minute, I can't believe that you know, I was drawn to to this belief, and it's wrong. I mean, we have to be there on the other side and say, we forgive you and we still love you, and you're, and we support you. And so I think it really makes sense. And the thing about love is seeing, humanity, right? It's really easy to hate when it's an us versus them, but when it's me versus you, it makes it a lot harder to hate because you have that personal connection.
But at the same time, Joanne, I just want to say that no one said this will be easy, right? Right? And so our paths are what they are. I am optimistic, and I feel comfortable moving forward that things will make a shift. And I believe there's power in numbers. So it starts with conversation as brief or as long as the ones we're having now. And then we leave this call and people around us are hearing the conversation we're having. So like I said, I strongly believe, it's a rippling effect. We start, we jar the waters, we wave them, we make them real sloppy, and it spills over. But and I just have to say this: we have to deal with some education. We have to educate ourselves. We have to, I would be, it would be, in my opinion, dishonest to a movement of any sort if you haven't done all your research, you haven't gotten, the information from reliable sources. So that seems to be a bigger gap for me. Is who do we trust with this? Where's your information coming from? Is it reliable? Is it, you're dealing with science, you're dealing with numbers, you're dealing with whatever? And I think that's once again an individual decision. But we have to stand on some type of solid ground. And for me, it's in the research. It's in knowing, getting the information for myself and making, decisions and moves based on information and not just third party or those sorts of things.
Yes. And this certainly, I'm going to read another quote, and it just ties this in so well, I believe. And is a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King. And he says, "I have decided to stick to love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." It is. I am fulfilled right now. My tank is runneth over with this evening and all that I've heard, and I'm rejuvenated, honestly. So you can count on me. That's what I'm saying. I think one of the things kids seem to gravitate towards me. I don't know why, but they gravitate towards me. But the main thing I tell them is that, I'm going to be that guy. I remember walking down the street, Adrian, and saying hi to one of my teachers, not a former teacher, but to a teacher I currently had. I was young, and that teacher did not speak back to me. And I thought that was like, why is that teacher pretending she doesn't know me? I mean, why do people change in different settings? And this is some of what you're speaking to. So I made it a point that if I ever became a teacher, that no matter what student, no matter how good they were, how bad they were, if they spoke to me in the street, I spoke back. And you know what? This goes a long way. Because to this day, these kids will stop me in the street and start talking. Some I thought were heading towards the wrong path. They weren't. I find out through talking to them that they turned themselves around. And so that's what legitimizing does when you do something and you do something in your heart that's you feel is right. The legitimacy comes from how people react to it, positively to it. So you're doing something good.
I just want to add something.
And with that,
Lance, I feel like you and I are thinking the same things. I do a lot of programs in schools, not this past year, unfortunately, but in Hartford. And my thing is always, I know Maura, you were asking what can the museum do to, reach more kids. It's really just about asking them and giving them the platform to tell them how something makes them feel or how they want to react to that. Because I find all the time, some of the most difficult kids, when I'm working, I do writing with them for the most part. When I'm working with them on creative writing, they could be so difficult and not want to do it. And I was just like, okay, just, you know what? Then you write right now why you don't want to do this. Like, that's what you take my writing prompt, throw it out the window, and you sit there and you tell me why you don't want to do this or what's going on with that. And I think it's so rare that adults ask students and children, just tell me what you're feeling about this. Like, how does that make you feel? And all of that, write it down, be creative. I've worked with high school kids. I'm like, listen, I'm not grading these and I'm not going to, come down on you if you're using language that you shouldn't. Just, I want you to be like open and honest about it. And I've done programs about Martin Luther King. I've taken in his I Have a Dream. We have a book and it has these beautiful illustrations in it. And I've read it and I just have them choose something that they love out of that and just respond to it. And, whether it's negative or positive, I think just giving students that ability to have that moment and say exactly how they're feeling. When articles came out about the high schools teaching the African-American and Latina history programs, there were so many comments, and really I have to stay off of Facebook when this stuff comes out because it's disgusting, from parents saying, my student's not going to take that. My child is not allowed to take that class. And it's so frustrating because we're not allowing them to have their own feelings about a lot of the stuff they're being told. Like, this is how it is and this is what it is. And of course there are parents who are more open. I hope that I've brought my daughter up to think for herself, I hope. But I think it's just so important that we allow them to share their own opinions and thoughts without any judgment on that. That was it.
Yes, Susie, thank you.
Going off
Thank
of
you.
that, and I know it's been mentioned tonight, Susie, everything you said, the photo album on Facebook, on the museum's Facebook page of New Britain students' artwork inspired by Dr. King and his quotes really encapsulates that. And I encourage everyone to check it out. But just, we prompted them, the community advisory group just prompted anyone in the area, local students, to just take their favorite quote from Dr. King. I mean, we weren't telling them which one, just pick one that they like and, just create something from it. And what they did submit is just amazing. Some of them interpreted the quote, and said, I think this is, he meant this, and they used whatever medium they wanted to, whether it was one of them made a story, like a narrative, someone did a poem, someone built something out of Legos, someone used clay. I mean, they did their own thing, and I think that its turnout is much better and more genuine than it would have been if we had told them, write a 5-sentence paragraph about why Dr. King's quote is relevant today. So I totally agree with you. Kids can, what they create can really, really be powerful. But I want to thank you all for this great conversation. Thank you, Min, for opening this up for us, to the community advisory group and those of you that came on tonight, and for all of you that participated. All the interviews will be posted later on to the museum's YouTube. There's a lot more content on there for you guys to watch, and it's really great interview footage. So. Like I said, we have a full roster of events this week. Tomorrow's event is a kids hour, as I mentioned. There'll be special guests reading stories about Dr. King. We will show some of the artworks that are in the student art show on Facebook. And then we also will be presenting the Martin Luther King Service Award to outstanding youth in New Britain, which is very exciting. And then we have the Love Loud open mic hosted by Adrian Elliott at 6:30 on Thursday night, and a Reflect and Rejoice with Grace Church event on Friday evening to close out our Martin Luther King celebration. So I hope everyone will be there, and thank you all for a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.